Hello and welcome back to another episode of Fully Blooming. This episode is going to be all about the next chapter that my business is taking and why I think it's so important. And this next chapter is all about working with corporate clients, entrepreneurs, and founders who want to get really clear on their vision and want to clear the blocks to getting there. Because, oh boy, I've been there. And this is a project and something that I've really wanted to work on for the last 3 years, pretty much since I started my whole journey into this kind of entrepreneurial world and doing coaching, intuitive healing, energy readings, etc. And it's interesting because it keeps popping up and people tell me that, I'd be really good at this. And I've had so many different ideas around working with businesses and things, but I haven't fully been able to kind of clamp it down. And in the last month or so, it really has come together. And I've already started working with some individuals who have really grown and thrived from what we've done together. And what I really do believe is that we want to continue living on this planet. And as the way that we're going at the moment, it's simply not sustainable. And we know that word sustainable, right? We know that we need to do things differently. And yet it's really scary to do things differently. And at the same time, the people who changed the world and changed the course of our own history and our own evolution didn't do things the same way that everyone else did. And I think our uniqueness and our real individual blueprint is being so lost at the moment in different projects, in different environments that we're in. And I saw a stat that 90% of startups fail. And yes, of course, failure is also part of the journey and part of this process that we all embark on when we take this decision to go down the entrepreneurial path, whatever that looks like. But at the same time, I think that number could be reduced dramatically when people have the right environment, when people stop trying to do things the way that everyone else has been doing things for so long. Because as we've seen, even in the last 4 years, that things are changing drastically and very, very quickly. And you can either stay with the old times and dig your heels in and resist the change, or you can open your eyes, be curious to a new and different way, and potentially a much more holistic way of doing things, and dive right in and have a look at where you're suppressing your uniqueness, where you wanted to do things differently, but you haven't seen anyone else do that. And the work that I'm stepping into and what I'm putting out there into the world is this aligned business strategy. It's really tuning into that original vision that you had. I don't know, writing it on a napkin or talking about it with a friend all of a sudden, it all just flowing out of you. And that excitement and that buzz that I think so many of us lose as we go through this entrepreneurial journey. And as I said before, things are changing so quickly and there are so many new ways of doing things. And yes, things have worked for certain people. However, we are not in a time and an age of things working by replicating anymore. We are working in a time and an age that uniqueness and that unique blueprint that we have within us, those ideas, those creative thoughts, those intuitive hits, that's the new way of making things work. And that's the new way of doing business. And it's a really exciting time. But I think so many people are starting to tap into this way of working. And yet it can scare people off because it is very different. There is almost no rule book on how to do this. And it all starts from connecting to yourself And that in itself can be a little bit scary and a little bit overwhelming. And how I see it is that a business is a part of your soul's blueprint. If you've had an idea that has come from somewhere, it has come from, for me, it's source. And when we really start putting it out there in the world, and it's not just an idea anymore, we are putting our energy into that. So we need to be aware of what kind of energy are we putting into that entity, into that thing that we are creating. Because if it's from a place of need, of lack, of potentially anger or frustration or all whatever it is, and it's not from a place of potentially serving others, from really connecting back to that why of why did I start this in the first place, then we lose that. And I think that's where so many companies fail. Or they create an environment that fosters that and attracts people to work in that because they are on that same frequency. And so, of course, there are so many successful businesses at the moment. There are people making a ton of money. There are companies that are thriving. However, I do believe that in the next 10, 20 years, if people aren't open to a new way of doing things, companies are going to disappear because they simply won't be able to keep up with the frequency of the world in a way. And again, it's that sustainability element. It's not just sustainability in the way that we've all been sold that, to create a sustainable planet. The planet is going to do just fine without us. It's actually our role, it can be our role to actually continue humanity on this planet. You know, the planet's going to do fine, whether we're here or not. And I think I remember talking to someone and they said they'd read this book, and it's almost this interesting ego drive of we can save the planet. The planet doesn't need saving. We need saving in a way if we want to continue living and continue creating a planet for future generations to be able to live a life that is also joyous and exciting and supportive of their dreams and hopes. And so it's sustainable in a way that it's not just sustainable for the planet or our existence on the planet, it's sustainable for ourselves in this moment. Is it going to lead us to burnout? Is it going to mean that in 5, 10 years, we're going to look back and think, oh my goodness, where did those years go? And I had so many plans that I wanted to do, but I just fully, everything was my business. And yes, there are certain points that will happen and you will be fully invested and it will just seem like there's no time to do anything else. However, we know it's not a sustainable way of creating things, of building things, and things do take time. And it's almost like a bit of a paradox between this feeling that we're running out of time because the world is going to increase in temperature, etc., and all of the repercussions of that. However, at the same time, we need to be aware that going inwards and really taking the time to reflect on our own motives and connect to that vision of what we want to create in the world, and then taking the steps to that, that will also take time. And that isn't a bad thing, but it is that strange paradox. And I think it's definitely a collective energy of, oh my God, we're running out of time. And at the same time, what we actually all need to do, or a majority of us need to do, is slow down. So it's an interesting dynamic. However, things will actually happen so much faster because we've taken that time. And going back again to that episode that I had with Maud, where she said, when I'm running an overdrive and when I think, no, I need to keep going, that's exactly the moment that you need to stop and take a day or half a day to do something completely different and do something to nourish your own soul. And so this is the work that I'm stepping into now, to hold the space and to really allow people to not only use the strategic tools that we know that help people connect to themselves, to slow down, to take a breath, but also the strategic tools to put in place so that the business can grow in a sustainable, in much more intuitive way. Because fundamentally, if we're tuning into our intuition and tuning into ourselves, then, and at the same time building a business, then our soul isn't going to choose things that are to our detriment, to the planet's detriment, and because it's all connected. And I think the key thing here is that it's already happening. People are already connecting with the energy of their companies, with much more holistic ways of building their companies. We're seeing it with some people going back to work, some people are staying at home, some people are blending the two, but it's also kind of finding what works and the reasons behind those choices. Is it a need for control, or is it an actual, this is the vision for my business and that is the actual step that I need to take to get that point in my business, whether it's bringing people together or allowing them to be completely remote. And fundamentally, it's when you're starting to build a business on your own, in some ways it's a lot easier to really hold on to that vision yourself. And then as soon as people start, your team starts building and people start coming into that vision, it's a delegation. And you have to be so clear on that vision so that the messages that you're putting out there, the content, the work, the services, everything that you're putting out there, even if it's not yours, it's still a part of that initial vision, of that initial why of what you're stepping into and what you want to put out there in the world. And when you employ people, they also have to be in line with that vision. I saw an interview with a football manager, and he said, there's not much difference between the top people in football now. There are some amazing stars, but fundamentally it comes down to the character. And if you have one incredible star, but their character is all wrong, that's going to influence the rest of the team. And I think it's so applicable to business as well, that you could go after that person because they've been to that university or they've done that course or they've got that experience. But if they don't blend with the rest of the team, it's not going to work. And as I touched on earlier, it is already happening. People are, since 2020, a little bit before, people were starting to look for different ways of doing things. Self-care was such a buzzword, right? But there's so many things that I'll go into a whole thing about self-care on another episode, but it's that awareness, how we're all talking about mental health now. There's so much more awareness, and fundamentally, because I feel like fundamentally is my favorite word at the moment, because we are all energy, and this isn't a woo-woo theory, this isn't anything like that. This is simply that we are all energy. There is no denying it. I am now using energy to charge my laptop. There is every particle within my body and every atom is energy. And there are so many amazing things coming through quantum physics at the moment that are showing us how interconnected we all are. And it's not something out there. It is all so real. And it's becoming our everyday language without us realizing it, which is so beautiful, because I definitely don't see us all going down the, connected to angels or working with spirit guides or going on retreats or ceremony or whatever. I'm not saying we all have to be super spiritual and become witches overnight, although I'm sure there's a lot of closet witches out there still. But it is looking at alternative ways of tuning into your business and finding ways to work with it and growing it in, again, a sustainable way. And I saw a post on LinkedIn that someone said, oh, it was really interesting. I stopped posting on XYZ platform and I had this like sudden rush of energy. And I started posting on a different platform. And from that, I got, I don't know, £6,000 to £12,000 worth of bookings. And that is a perfect example of shifting your attention from one thing and shifting your energy from one thing and putting it into something else. And the results that can have simply because of that energy shift. And I think as business owners, there are so many energy leaks that people have. And I'm going through at the moment, I'm getting rid of the things that are not giving me energy within my business and actually clearing out a lot of things so that I can really put 300% of my energy into this next project that I'm working on. And it's all been happening anyway, right? You sit and you brainstorm with your teams, or you have collaboration meetings or whatever it is, or you have like vision meetings and getting really clear on your strategy. That is all, it's all already happening. And I think when we empower ourselves and really have that connection to ourselves and don't let the stereotypes I think that we all have and the labels that we potentially put on ourselves to affect us when we're in that work environment, that's when we can really bring our own unique blueprint to the business. And that's why you've been hired, right? You've been hired because someone saw something in you that you could bring to the team. And imagine a team where every single person is really aware of their own why, of their own vision, whether it's just for their life or how they want to show up in the world, or it's for the company that they're working for or the project that they're working on and their bigger vision. Imagine if every single person in that room had the confidence to speak up, to really be comfortable with themselves and really love themselves in all situations and be honest with themselves and really question, do I want to be here? Is this how I want to show up? Is this a team that I want to be a part of? And we're already seeing that with the younger generations, right? They're saying, hey, I don't want to sit behind a desk for 5 days a week looking at Excel spreadsheets. And then it's not even an option for them. So how can we also get that generation into these teams that need that young energy, that needs that young vitality and those different ideas? And I'm seeing now it's so many companies are almost taking a step backwards because they think they're taking a step forwards. And from an energy reading perspective and how I'm looking at it, it's not that. And they're shooting themselves in the foot a little bit because they are taking that step backwards. And of course, they'll, over time, whatever happens, it's their evolution, their journey that the company potentially has to go on. But I think it's so important to understand where those decisions are coming from, where those reasons for XYZ in your company are coming from. Is it because everyone else has already done it and it's worked for them? Or is it from a fear perspective? Is it from a lack of leadership? Is it from a lack of trust? There's so many different reasons and whys. And fundamentally, is it a why that really resonates with your bigger vision, with your bigger perspective and your bigger why. And so this is what I'm stepping into and helping entrepreneurs, founders, corporate clients really step into and claim, because there are so many other techniques and so many other routes and modalities that you can use in your business that are fundamentally there's that word again, are going to help. And I know that if you are open to a different way of doing things and are really excited about the thought of doing things differently and disrupting and going for it in a way that potentially no one else has, or you haven't seen anyone else who has, and sparking new ideas, then this is absolutely the route for you. And keep doing that. Keep doing what excites you and keep playing and testing. And we are, as a collective, going through such a shift. And what would happen if you listen to that intuitive nudge, or that think about that dream that you had a couple of nights ago, or see the synchronicities in your life? How would things look differently? How would things look different in your life and in your business, and how you run it, how you work with your teammates? And it's so interesting, because I think even 3 years ago, I wouldn't have felt confident enough at all to talk about this. And now I feel that enough is enough, fundamentally. Sure. And it's like, we can't keep going on like this. We can, of course we can, but we kind of know what's going to happen and the inevitability if we continue like this. And I think it's almost that we always have a choice, but it's almost that we don't have a choice. It's, why would we want to continue burning out? Why would we continue want to going through these stress cycles and feeling completely overwhelmed and burnt out and not have a good work-life balance, whatever that means, or really ignoring our own intuitive hits and our intuitive nudges and those feelings, and not wanting to strive for really what's best for us? That's a question that I'm going to leave there. But yeah, it's a really exciting time. It is a time that I feel that it's just inevitable, that, and I know from people that I've spoken to, I know from things that I've heard, that the biggest companies, the biggest leaders in industry, the CEOs, they are tapping into a new way of doing things. And it's not actually new. It's simply a much more tuned in way of running a business. And it's a lot more fun. And it's going to get you where you want to go in a really nourishing, sustainable way that doesn't lead to burnout, that leads to you creating something that's truly beneficial for yourself, for others, for the planet. And isn't that something to be excited about? So on that note, thank you for listening. Thank you for seeing me, hearing me the last year and a bit with this podcast, and for the last almost 4 years now with my business and all the support. I will still be offering one-on-one sessions, but fundamentally I am fully stepping into this area, and it's really bloody exciting. I'm sending you all so much love. I hope that, again, this has inspired you in some way or triggered something within your mind for you to look a little bit deeper. And I will see you very soon. Mwah.